Deep in the mountains, where the wind carries ancient whispers and the earth holds countless secrets, there lived a man who had given up on himself completely. His name was Chen, and for 20 years he had been carrying a burden so heavy that it had turned his heart to stone. Every morning, Chen would wake up in his small cabin and feel the same crushing weight in his chest. The same thoughts would flood his mind. I am worthless. I have failed everyone. There is no point in trying anymore. These thoughts had become his daily companions, following him everywhere like shadows that never fade. Chen was not always like this. Once, he had dreams that burned bright like stars. He wanted to become a teacher, to inspire children, to make a difference in the world. But life had other plans. One mistake after another, one failure after another, and slowly, his dreams crumbled like old paper in the rain. Now, he spent his days alone, cutting wood and selling it in the nearby village. People would look at him with pity, or sometimes with fear, because his eyes held no light, no hope, just emptiness. Chen believed this was his fate. He thought some people are just meant to suffer, and he was one of them. But the universe has a strange way of teaching us lessons when we least expect them. One cold winter morning, while Chen was cutting wood near a frozen stream, his axe slipped and fell into the icy water. Without thinking, he reached in to grab it, but the current was stronger than expected. The axe was gone, swept away by the rushing water beneath the ice. Chen sat on the snowy ground and began to cry. Not just for the axe, but for everything. For his lost dreams, for his wasted years, for the man he used to be, and the man he had become. And tears fell onto the frozen earth in that moment of complete surrender. Something extraordinary happened. As his tears touched the ground, he noticed something he had never seen before. Right there, pushing through a tiny crack in the frozen soil, was the smallest green shoot he had ever laid eyes on. In the middle of winter, when everything was supposed to be dead and cold, this little plant was fighting its way toward the light. Chen stared at this tiny miracle in disbelief. How was this possible? The ground was frozen solid. The temperature was below freezing. Nothing should be able to grow here, yet there it was, this fragile green life, refusing to give up. He knelt down and looked closer. The plant was so small, so delicate, that a single breath could destroy it. But despite its size, it radiated a strength that Chen had forgotten existed. This little shoot was not asking for permission to grow. It was not waiting for perfect conditions. It was simply pushing forward, one tiny movement at a time. For the first time in 20 years, Chen felt something stir deep inside his chest. It was not hope exactly, but something even more powerful. It was curiosity. He wanted to know how this plant would survive. He wanted to see what would happen next. Chen decided to visit this spot every day, not because he expected anything to change in his own life, but because he was fascinated by this small fighter that refused to surrender to the harsh winter. Little did he know that by watching this plant's journey, he was about to discover something that would transform everything he believed about himself and what was possible. Day after day, Chen returned to the frozen stream, and day after day, the plant continued its slow but determined growth. Day by day, the tiny plant grew stronger. Chen watched in amazement as it developed its first real leaf, then another and another. Even when fresh snow fell and covered it completely, the plant would somehow push through again, reaching toward whatever sunlight it could find. At first, Chen just observed from a distance. But as weeks passed, he began to feel protective of this small survivor. When heavy snow threatened to bury it forever, he would gently brush it away. When ice formed around its base, he would carefully break it free. Without realizing it, Chen had become the guardian of something precious. One morning, as he sat watching the plant sway in the cold wind, Chen began to speak to it. The words came out like a whisper at first. I know what it feels like to be small and forgotten. I know what it means to face impossible odds. But look at you, still fighting when everyone would say you should give up. The plant, of course, said nothing back. But something about its silent determination spoke to Chen in a language deeper than words. This plant was not concerned with its past failures. It was not worried about what others thought. It simply focused on one thing, growing toward the light, one day at a time. As winter slowly gave way to spring, the plant grew taller and stronger. Chen found himself looking forward to these daily visits more than anything else in his life. For the first time in decades, he had a reason to get up each morning that had nothing to do with survival or obligation. But the real transformation began when Chen started to see similarities between himself and his tiny companion. Both had emerged from frozen, seemingly impossible circumstances. Both had been overlooked and dismissed by the world. Both had reasons to give up, yet here they were, still breathing, still existing. One particularly warm morning in early spring, Chen noticed that the plant had developed something new. At its tip, there was a small bud beginning to form. His heart raced with excitement. After months of watching this survivor grow, it was preparing to bloom. Weeks later, that tiny bud opened into the most beautiful flower Chen had ever seen. Standing before this miracle, he finally understood. The plant had never been fighting the winter or the frozen ground. It had simply been following its nature to grow, to reach, to become what it was meant to be. Chen returned to the village that day, not as the broken man who had given up, but as someone who remembered that growth is always possible, even in the coldest seasons of our lives. He found work at the local school, helping children learn and discover their own light. The plant still grows by that stream, stronger every year. And sometimes, when travelers pass by and see it thriving in that unlikely place, they stop and wonder how something so beautiful could bloom where nothing should survive. Just like Chen learned, sometimes we must become the gardeners of our own hearts. When you plant seeds of persistence in the frozen ground of your struggles, miracles begin to grow. The stone you carry today can become the foundation for tomorrow's garden. Keep growing, keep reaching, and remember that every ending is just a new beginning waiting to unfold.